Media. Media is a huge religious topic, so we'll only show you one example of a challenge created by the digital age. Now, the world knows that burning a Qu'ran offends Muslims. Enraged crowds gather, governments complain, sometimes deaths occur. How could this be? Well, let's firstly show you what doesn't happen. Here's the Qu'ran on a smartphone. What would happen if I deleted that? Would that create an international incident? No, it wouldn't. And I'm not being provocative here, by the way. I'm simply demonstrating a media conundrum. And it goes further on the smartphone. The maker of the app might alert me to an update. If I were to download that update, it wouldn't change the words in the Qu'ran, but it would overwrite, i.e. destroy, the existing Qu'ran. So the supplier is culpable too in giving me an update. Now let's trace the media steps leading to this quandary, and they go a long way back to the original tablet, which wasn't an iPad, it was clay. People drew objects on these clay tablets that they would trade in. Pictures didn't become words first, oh no, they became numbers, and not decimal either. However, descriptions became necessary to write 5 sheep rather than 5 cows. So those ancient languages like Hebrew are actually a mixture of words and numbers. That might seem clever, but the real innovation was separating words out from numbers. This was an important step because virtually all languages ended up dropping their unique number system and adopting decimal, which is another story, so let's get back to words. Messages were etched on these cumbersome tablets and carried around. Not long messages though, the tablets were too heavy. A good one could handle 10 commandments. Now the Egyptians then found papyrus, and that was much lighter, and it meant you could write more down on them. And eventually scrolls were developed. You could write a lot on a scroll, and then you could carry a memory around. However, not everyone thought this was a good idea. Certainly not Plato, who relates his complaint in a legend about a king answering the inventor of the book. And he says, "If men learn this, it will implant forgetfulness in their souls. They will cease to exercise memory because they rely on that which is written, calling things to remembrance no longer from within themselves, but by means of external marks. What you have discovered is a recipe not for memory, but for reminder. And it is no true wisdom that you offer your disciples, but only its semblance. For by telling them of many things without teaching them, you'll make them seem to know much, while for the most part they know nothing. And as men filled not with wisdom, but with the conceit of wisdom, they will be a burden to their fellows." That's about 500 years before Jesus. And writing was still questionable during his era if the Apostle Paul can be believed. He wrote, "For the letter kills, but the spirit gives life." Shortly after Jesus and Paul, scrolls were superseded by an actual book with pages called a codex. You could include a lot of knowledge in a codex, many times the capacity of a scroll. But they were still handwritten, and it took a long, long time to copy one out neatly and correctly. As the centuries passed, people forgot Plato's warnings, and by the 6th century we find icons of Jesus holding a book, an item that didn't even exist when he walked this earth. Bad books were burnt to eradicate evil memories, but the Bible was divinized. It was fused to Jesus and all that artwork, and the most powerful city in the world, Constantinople, that happened to be relatively close to Arabia. So when Muhammad received his visions 100 years later, several media layers had been put in place. Firstly, words and sentences could be written down. Secondly, they could be stored in a book, although that took a lot of effort. And thirdly, the nearby greatest religion known to him had a book that looked like it was divine. Is it any surprise that his book was put together only 10 years after he passed away, whereas the Christian Bible took hundreds to formalize? And given the example to the west of Arabia and the difficulty in reproducing it, that to burn his book was deemed evil, because after all that competing religion in the west also burnt books that were evil or heretical and painted the Son of God holding the divinized one, the Bible. A road bump occurred in the 16th century when the printing press was introduced to the Muslims, but they fended off this simpler way of duplicating their book for nearly 200 years. Fast forward to today and we can burn a digital book without a thought. The challenge of replication has gone. There is no cost in duplicating any digital book. Will this penny ever drop? Again, history has a lesson. Eventually, the Ottoman rulers of the Muslim Empire realized they needed the printing press, and it moved from being evil to good. Any religious objections have faded away over time because the duplication ability outweighed the evil of a machine churning out the words of Allah rather than a human being copying them. Now, it turns out that leading Muslims have thought about this, the issue of deleting a Quran from a smartphone. And indeed there is a reply from the Fatwa Center of America which to a question that was sent into them, and the question was, is it a sin to delete Qu'ran app from our smartphones? And the answer from the Mufti, the highly trained authority, is that deleting Qu'ran from a smartphone, tablet or computer is a tricky question. The rule of deleting the Qu'ran app from a phone or a file from the computer would depend on the intention of the person. If the person deletes the Quran with a wrong intention, such as disrespect of the Quran, or perhaps erasing the Quran from the heart and mind, etc., then it would be haram, which is bad, and it would also affect the faith of the person negatively. If someone deletes the Quran from their phone or computer simply because they're going to replace it with a newer version or better file/app, then there is absolutely no harm. Likewise, if someone was deleting an app of Quran that he does not use anymore, or due to storage issue, etc., then there is no harm, and Allah knows best. Well, interesting. Lots of questions you could ask. The first one being, what is the wrong intention? But let's not go there. So let's just ask one simple one. What's the storage issue? So let's make a parallel with a physical hard copy bookshelf that you've got, and it only holds 100 books, let's say. Just like your smartphone might only hold 100 apps. You get another book, and you decide that you've got to get rid of a book on your shelf to make room, so you get rid of the Quran to make room. Why did you not choose something else? Or another app to delete? Why? Surely not the Quran. Surely there is no better file/app than the Quran. The point is that this leading American Muslim authority, he's not valuing the words of Allah, he's valuing the paper they are written on or not written on. He's valuing the hard copy book over the e-book. Because if we'd asked them about deleting a physical hard copy book, we would not get this. You see, he doesn't know how to deal with the digital age, but at least he has the honesty to admit that in the very first sentence.